What makes a great air combat movie? Is it the thunder of propellers, the courage of pilots, or the silence between missions when the sky feels endless? For decades, filmmakers have tried to capture that rare mix of bravery and fear, the feeling of flying toward history with no guarantee of return. From the Battle of Britain to daring bombing runs, these films remind us that courage isn't found on the ground. It's written in the clouds. Number 15. Pearl Harbor, 2001. When Pearl Harbor exploded onto screens in the early 2000s, critics called it too glossy, too romantic, too Hollywood. But strip away the love triangle, and you're left with some of the most jaw-dropping aerial sequences ever filmed. Director Michael Bay went big, full-scale replica aircraft, real explosions, and long, unbroken shots that make you feel the heat, the rush, the roar of engines diving through smoke. Ben Affleck and Josh Hartnett star as best friends caught between duty and emotion. But the real star here is the sky itself. Each dogfight is filmed like a ballet in chaos. Engines screaming across the screen, sunlight glinting off metal wings. The attack sequence, one continuous flow of terror and precision, remains one of the most technically ambitious scenes in modern war cinema. For all its melodrama, Pearl Harbor captures something real, the beauty and horror of being suspended between life and fire. You might roll your eyes at the dialogue, but when those planes rise over the Pacific, it's impossible not to feel that electric mix of awe and dread. It's blockbuster storytelling that soars sometimes too high, but always spectacular. Number 14. Flying Leathernecks, 1951. Before digital effects, before green screens, there was grit. Flying Leathernecks, directed by Nicholas Ray, is pure old-school aviation storytelling, loud, smoky, and unapologetically human. John Wayne plays Major Dan Kirby, a Marine commander balancing leadership, exhaustion, and compassion, while trying to keep his squadron alive in the Pacific theater. Shot with real Grumman Wildcats and Corsairs, and laced with actual wartime footage, this film puts you right inside the roar and chaos of aerial missions. The camera doesn't just show planes, it shows men on the edge of exhaustion, wiping sweat, strapping in, and flying again. Wayne's tough authority clashes beautifully with Robert Ryan's more empathetic second-in-command, creating a moral tug-of-war that fuels every mission. The movie's secret weapon isn't its explosions, it's its conscience. It quietly asks, does commanding from above make you lose sight of those below? For a film made in the early 50s, Flying Leathernecks is surprisingly self-aware. It's less about heroics and more about human cost, hidden beneath the thunder of engines. You can smell the oil, feel the vibration, and sense the unspoken fear of men who keep flying even when they've run out of strength. Number 13. Battle Hymn, 1957. Rock Hudson takes flight in Battle Hymn, a movie that turns redemption into an aerial journey, based on the real story of Colonel Dean Hess. It follows a pilot haunted by a tragic mistake, who tries to make peace with himself by training young aviators for a new conflict. But at its core, this isn't a film about war, it's about forgiveness. Hudson delivers one of his most grounded performances, trading glamour for quiet conviction. The United States Air Force lent full support, filling the screen with authentic aircraft and realistic flight choreography. The result feels alive, wings slicing through sunlight, formation flying that looks like art in motion. Yet, the film never forgets the humans behind the controls. You see exhaustion, pride, fear, and moments of grace. Unlike the louder war epics of its time, Battle Hymn doesn't glorify victory, it leans into humility. It says that courage isn't always pulling a trigger. Sometimes it's choosing to try again when you'd rather disappear. It's the kind of film that sneaks up on you emotionally, reminding viewers that even in the darkest skies, redemption can still find its way through the clouds. Number 12. Piece of Cake, 1988. This British miniseries isn't well known outside aviation circles, but Piece of Cake might be the most realistic depiction of early war flying ever filmed. Adapted from Derek Robinson's novel, it follows a Royal Air Force squadron as the war begins, full of young, cocky pilots who soon realize that bravery alone won't keep them alive. Shot using real Spitfires and Hurricanes soaring over the English countryside, the series has a haunting authenticity. No CGI, no romantic filters, just blue skies and the constant threat of loss. Each dogfight feels tense and improvisational, and every victory feels too brief. The camaraderie is warm, the humor is sharp, but beneath it all runs the unshakable truth that few of these men will see another year. The aerial scenes are astonishing, choreographed by real pilots who recreate the dance of life and death at 15,000 feet. But what makes Piece of Cake unforgettable is its honesty. It strips away propaganda and glory, leaving only youth, arrogance, and fear. By the final episode, you're not cheering for victory. You're hoping just one more plane makes it back. That's what makes it hit harder than any explosion ever could. Number 11. Dunkirk, 2017. Christopher Nolan didn't make a war movie, he made an experience. Dunkirk throws you into the evacuation without warning. No setup, no speeches, just survival. Tom Hardy's Spitfire sequences steal the show, offering some of the most nerve-shredding aerial cinematography ever captured. Nolan insisted on filming with real aircraft and IMAX cameras mounted in cockpits, and it shows. You feel every vibration, every engine roar, every moment of silence before the next move. There's almost no dialogue, just the relentless ticking of time, and the sound of men trying to hold on to hope. What makes Dunkirk revolutionary is its rhythm. The editing and sound merge into a heartbeat that never slows down. It's not about patriotism or politics, it's about endurance. Hardy's final glide across the horizon, fuel spent, propeller whispering, is pure cinema. No words, just meaning. In a world full of loud war spectacles, Dunkirk proved that silence can be louder than any explosion. It's not just a film you watch, it's one you feel in your chest. For modern audiences, this was proof that even decades later, the skies of the 1940s still have stories worth hearing and fears worth remembering. Number 10. The Blue Max, 1966. Before computer-generated effects ruled the skies, the Blue Max gave audiences the real thing: pilots, planes, and peril. Directed by John Gillerman, this epic follows Bruno Stachel, a German soldier who claws his way into the elite world of fighter aces. George Peppard plays him as cold, ambitious, and daring, a man who sees medals not as honor, but as escape. The film is set during the last years of the Great War, but its spirit echoes across all air combat stories that followed. Every flight was real. No miniatures, no fakes. The production built full-sized biplanes and sent them spinning through Irish skies, chasing light and shadow. One stunt pilot even came dangerously close to losing control while performing the death spiral that would become the movie's signature. Beyond the spectacle, the Blue Max digs into obsession, how the dream of glory corrodes everything it touches. Stachel's hunger to rise above class and expectation turns flight into a metaphor for ambition itself. Jerry Goldsmith's haunting score lifts each battle into tragedy, reminding us that not all victories are noble. More than half a century later, the Blue Max remains a benchmark of authenticity. It's the rare war movie that looks breathtaking and thinks deeply, a film that understands how the higher you climb, the thinner the air of humanity becomes. Number 9. Catch-22, 1970. Some movies show the chaos of war. Catch-22 makes you live inside it. Mike Nichols turned Joseph Heller's classic novel into a surreal, sharp, and darkly funny look at the madness that takes hold when logic disappears. Alan Arkin plays Yossarian, a bomber pilot who just wants to survive missions that make no sense. The catch? If you're sane enough to want out, that proves you're fit to keep flying. It's an endless loop of irony, and the movie captures that with dizzying style. Filmed in Mexico with a fleet of restored B-25 bombers, it features some of the most authentic aerial footage ever shot. Nichols orchestrated it like a fever dream. Looping sequences, echoing dialogue, and skies that feel too big for sanity to survive. Every takeoff feels like déjà vu, every landing a borrowed miracle. For aviation fans, Catch-22 is a technical marvel. For thinkers, it's a mirror showing how systems twist good people into absurdity. Beneath its humor runs something chillingly familiar: the endless repetition of orders, fear, and confusion. More than 5 decades later, Catch-22 still feels modern because madness never goes out of style. It's the war film that laughs at itself, and that's exactly why it hits so hard. Number 8. The Bridges at Toko-Ri, 1954. What are heroes made of: duty, courage, or heartbreak? The Bridges at Toko-Ri asks that question in a way few films ever have. Though technically set during the Korean conflict, its soul belongs to World War II, and its story carries that same quiet dignity of men who keep flying even when the mission makes no sense. William Holden plays Lieutenant Harry Brubaker, a weary pilot sent on a dangerous bombing mission deep behind enemy lines. Grace Kelly adds warmth as his wife, waiting and worrying at home. But this isn't a love story. It's a study of sacrifice. Director Mark Robson, working with full U.S. Navy cooperation, filmed with real carriers, real jets, and real explosions. There's no faking it. You feel the cramped cockpits, the deafening takeoffs, and the unbearable silence of waiting for news that never comes. Holden's performance is all restraint and fatigue, the quiet despair of a man who knows courage doesn't always come with reward. The ending, subdued yet unforgettable, captures the heartbreak of men who give everything without fanfare. Critics praised its honesty, and audiences felt its ache. The Bridges at Toko-Ri isn't about victory. It's about grace, that invisible kind of bravery that doesn't need applause to matter. Number 7. Red Tails, 2012. When George Lucas decided to tell the story of the Tuskegee Airmen, he didn't make a quiet history lesson. He made a high-flying celebration. Red Tails finally gave the first black fighter squadron the blockbuster treatment they deserved, mixing heartfelt drama with dazzling modern effects. Terrence Howard and Cuba Gooding Jr. lead a cast of determined pilots fighting prejudice on the ground and proving themselves in the air. The movie's strength lies not in gritty realism, but in spirit. Every dogfight looks like a painting in motion: bright skies, twisting planes, trails of light carving the clouds. Industrial light and magic pushed the visuals to make you feel each dive and roll like a pulse. Some critics said it was too old-fashioned. Maybe so, but that's part of its charm. Red Tails feels like a throwback to the grand heroism of 50s war films, just updated with 21st century adrenaline. What matters most is that it exists. For decades, the Tuskegee story was undertold, and Red Tails brought it roaring into theaters with style and pride. It may not be flawless, but it soars on sincerity, a movie that doesn't just entertain, but honors. Number 6. The Tuskegee Airmen, 1995. Before Red Tails came along, HBO had already told the same story, and many still say they did it better. The Tuskegee Airmen is the quieter, grittier, and more emotional version of the same legend. Lawrence Fishburne leads a powerhouse cast, with Andre Braugher and Cuba Gooding Jr. portraying real men who broke barriers through discipline and courage. This isn't about flashy effects, it's about respect. The movie focuses on the discrimination these pilots faced, the exhaustion of constantly proving their worth, and the pride that fueled them to become one of the most successful fighter groups in American history. The flight scenes, shot with restored P-51 Mustangs, are breathtakingly authentic: sunlight flashing on silver wings, the sound of engines rising like thunder. But it's the human story that lingers. When these pilots finally earn the chance to fight, you feel their triumph deep down. Because it's not just a battle in the air, it's a victory of dignity over doubt. The Tuskegee Airmen earned multiple Emmy nominations and remains one of the most respected TV war dramas ever made. It's not about explosions or glory shots, it's about people whose courage forced history to change course. Some films fly high. This one lands in your heart and stays there. Number 5. Tora, 1970. If accuracy were a flight path, Tora would be locked dead on target. This American-Japanese co-production is less about explosions and more about precision, a painstaking frame-by-frame recreation of the events that led to the attack on Pearl Harbor. The film splits its focus evenly between both sides, showing Japanese admirals, American officers, and the growing chain of missed signals that led to disaster. Directors Richard Fleischer, Toshio Masuda, and Kinji Fukasaku worked separately, but in perfect sync, building what's arguably the most balanced depiction of a major historical event ever put on film. Everything you see is real full-scale aircraft replicas, Navy carriers, and live pyrotechnics, all captured with sweeping cinematography that feels documentary-level authentic. It's not fast or flashy. It's deliberate, methodical, like watching the gears of history grind toward an inevitable moment. Some viewers once called it too dry, but time proved them wrong. Tora doesn't chase emotion. It earns it through discipline and detail. The final attack sequence is jaw-dropping, a ballet of coordination that leaves you in stunned silence. This isn't Hollywood fantasy. It's history reconstructed proof that sometimes truth alone can be the most powerful storyteller of all. Number 4. The Dam Busters, 1955. Before Star Wars, before digital anything, there was The Dam Busters, the film that made flying low over enemy territory look terrifyingly real. Directed by Michael Anderson, this British classic dramatizes Operation Chastise, where Royal Air Force pilots used bouncing bombs to destroy massive German dams. It's not just an action movie, it's a film about invention. The movie takes you inside the engineering mind of Barnes Wallis, the man who dreamed up the impossible bomb that skipped across water like a stone. The realism is extraordinary. The filmmakers collaborated with real engineers, pilots, and even used archival footage to blend science with suspense. The tension builds slowly. Long nights of training, endless test flights, and then the mission. The low-altitude runs feel claustrophobic. Every tree and power line a death sentence. Richard Todd, playing Wing Commander Guy Gibson, brings quiet steadiness to the chaos. The movie's legacy stretches far beyond the 1950s. George Lucas famously admitted the Death Star trench run in Star Wars was inspired by the dam busters, right down to the radio chatter. It's not just a war story, it's a blueprint for cinematic tension. You watch it now and realize this is where modern action learned to fly. Number 3. Memphis Belle, 1990. If you want to know what courage sounds like, it's the creak of a bomber fuselage mid-flight, engines thundering, flak bursting outside. Memphis Belle captures that sound and that fear perfectly. Loosely based on the true story of the first B-17 crew to complete 25 missions over Europe. The film stars Matthew Modine, Eric Stoltz, Billy Zane, and Sean Astin as the young men inside that flying fortress. But the real star is the B-17 itself, heavy, loyal, and always trembling. Director Michael Caton Jones refused shortcuts. The production used real planes and choreographed real flights, no models, no digital tricks. The aerial footage feels tactile. Sunlight on metal, clouds ripped apart by propellers, radios buzzing with panic. But what makes it unforgettable is its humanity. Between missions, the crew jokes, argues, and worries like brothers. You see fear, pride, and exhaustion collide in one cramped cabin. When the final mission arrives, you feel every second, every bullet, every breath, every hope that they'll see home again. Memphis Belle isn't about heroism. It's about endurance. It's the story of ordinary men who finish the impossible, one heartbeat at a time. When it's over, you don't cheer, you exhale. Number 2. 12 O'Clock High, 1949. Long before modern psychology became a buzzword, 12 O'Clock High understood what pressure does to people. Gregory Peck delivers one of the most commanding performances of his career as General Frank Savage, a leader sent to rebuild a shattered bomber group. At first, Savage is ruthless, breaking down his men to rebuild their discipline. But as missions mount and losses rise, you begin to see the toll it takes on him too. This isn't a film about explosions, it's about emotional erosion. Filmed only a few years after the war, 12 O'Clock High feels eerily authentic. The airfields, the uniforms, even the planes are real. Much of the aerial footage was spliced from actual combat reels shot during the war. The authenticity is staggering, but the film's real power lies in its quiet moments. A commander staring at an empty bunk, a pilot trembling before takeoff. Critics called it the first true psychological war film. And they were right. Even the U.S. Air Force later used it as a study tool for leadership training. It's not flashy, not sentimental, it's raw truth wrapped in restraint. In every sense, 12 O'Clock High became the blueprint for every serious air war drama that followed. Number 1. The Battle of Britain, 1969. If one movie deserves to be called the king of air combat cinema, it's The Battle of Britain, directed by Guy Hamilton, the same man who later gave us James Bond classics. This film captures the desperate summer of 1940, when the fate of Europe hung in the clouds. The cast is monumental: Michael Caine, Laurence Olivier, Trevor Howard, yet no one actor overshadows the real star, the air. The production gathered an armada of actual vintage aircraft, Spitfires, Hurricanes, Messerschmitts, over 100 planes soaring through the skies for real. Not models, not tricks. The dogfights are breathtaking, each one filmed with choreographed precision against real cloudscapes, the sun flaring across wings like a painting come alive. The sound design is thunderous, the editing relentless. Yet beneath all the spectacle is quiet humanity: pilots staring at maps, crews waiting for word, commanders praying for clear skies. More than 50 years later, no movie has surpassed it for realism or sheer scale. It's not just a film, it's a time capsule. The Battle of Britain doesn't just show courage, it immortalizes it. You don't just watch it, you feel like you were there, eyes squinting into sunlight, heart beating in rhythm with a nation that refused to fall. So, which of these sky legends still makes your heart race? These films don't just replay history. They remind us what it means to aim higher when the odds are impossible. Whether it's a Spitfire gliding into silence or a bomber crew holding their breath, every frame is a salute to endurance. Tell us your favorite in the comments. Subscribe for more cinematic deep dives. And remember, some stories never land. They keep flying forever.